we're not plugging zeros in. Like, so technically, this 0, 0 is both the x and the y. So what we're doing here is the x and y steps to rise over line. Because this line doesn't have two different insets, you gotta know the rise over line. So that's our x and y steps, and then to get a second point, you gotta do that up and over. All right, so we're writing an equation, and at any time the directions indicate that there's some kind of direct variation going on, as soon as you read those words, you're gonna write this model down. Oh, it says a direct variation problem. Okay, if it says that, I know what I'm working with. I'm working with this equation, y equals kx. So it says, find a direct variation equation that relates x and y, and we're given, there's supposed to be a w here. We're given y equals 10 when x equals 2. It said hint. All right. So in order to write an equation, you must have k. K is what makes the equation. Y and x could be any point. K makes the equation. So step 1 in writing your equation, you're going to plug in the given x and y to the model, and that's going to help you solve for k. So plug in order to solve for k. Anybody find k yet? So I'm going to put 10 in here. What'd you get, Tyler? Shout it out. What'd you get? And I'm going to put 2 in here. Right? Y is 10, so I take the y out and I put 10 in. X is 2, take the x out, put 2 in. Solve for k. Given what you have, solve for k. So I would, the opposite of multiply is divide. Divide both sides by 2. And I get 5 equals k. So step 2 is to write the equation, keeping x and y and plugging in k. So we'll finish that portion of the problem by making the equation. Well, if y is 10 when x is 2, if x is 2, how would I create a 10? Well, k would have to be 5. So our constant is 5. So this is the equation. If those are our two values, this is the equation we're working with. If y truly varies directly as x, and we got a 10 when x is 2, well, that must have been a 5 there. So these questions have 2 parts. Part 2 will then say, use the equation that you just came up with. They're not going to give it to you. Use the equation that you made and calculate. So find y when x is 4. Yeah. Like that. Is that too much? Part 2 is actually to use the equation. So our equation equation is 5x, so y equals 5 times 4. So y would be 20. That means if x was 4, y is 20 in that direct variation. Part 1 and part 2 can take a little practice. Let's do another one. Write a direct variation equation that relates x and y. Y is 27 when x is 9. What do you guys think k is? 3. Like, how do you go from 9 to 27? You know? You're multiplying 9 by 3. So I'm picturing the equation. I'm wondering what k is. Well, I can picture it. It has to be 3. And I want you to show your work. Put your device away. Show your work and calculate it. Put your devices away, people. Okay. So there's a lot of work to be shown. So we'll divide both sides by 9. Put the line here. 3 equals k. Step 2. Write the equation. There it is. Y equals 3 times x. That's like the one you graphed on Monday. So that means that if you were to continue that graph really long, the point 9, 27 would be on that graph. Gosh, I wrote this really low. Let me just pull this up. All right, now do part 2. Use the equation to find y when x is 15. All right, we'll do one more and then we're going to head to those workbooks. Can anybody, you think, come up with an x and a y that vary directly? Can anybody come up with an x and a y that vary directly?
3 and 5. Wait, 15.
Okay. What were you going to say? Yeah. I'm going to zoom. Joseph, can you come up with an x and y that vary directly? Okay. What would be your k in that situation? Okay, Jake, can you do it?
100 for y and 10 for x.
What would be your k in that situation? Yeah. Anybody else want to try? Lauren, can you do it? So you pop up.
36 for y, like x is going to be 4, and k is going to be 9.
Yep. Good job. Okay, I'm going to come up with one myself right now. It's going to be really tricky. Try a more difficult one. It won't be that tricky. Try to change it up a little bit. Okay. Okay, use some different numbers, some less recognizable numbers, so that you're kind of forced to use the steps a little bit. Jake, put your device away. That's my second time telling you that. Told the class, and now I'm telling you. Okay, a little more difficult here just to come up with K looking at it. So I'm going to use the steps. Show your work. Even if you feel like, man, I got this down, mental math, I want you to show your work. So I know it says direct variation, so I'm thinking of this model. So I'll put a 21 in here and a 63 in. Put in my line. Opposite of multiply is divide. Divide both sides by 63. And I get 21 over 63 is K. Here your calculator is very good. But 21 doesn't divide by 63, like to make a whole number or an integer. So let's just reduce that fraction. Does 21 over 63 reduce?
Yes.
What does it reduce to? 1/3. The top and bottom divide by 3. The top and bottom divide by 21, leaving 1 over 3 as K. So I purposely picked a K value that was a fraction this time, just to really challenge you. So K values sometimes are fractions. So what's happening is, in order for X to become Y, it's actually being divided by 3. And dividing by 3 is the same as multiplying 1/3. So sometimes, in the way you do that is your X value is bigger than your Y value. So you got to think, well, how does the number get smaller? Well, it's divided. All right, we'll head to step 2. We'll write the equation. So our equation is y equals 1/3 x. Not bad. Like I could still graph that. Start at 0, 0 and go up 1 over 3, up 1 over 3. So let's say this reducing this fraction just got you like confused. You could have gone ahead and divide this and make this 0.3, and I would give you you know, a good amount of credit for making this y equals 0.3x. Still a direct variation equation. You still got your k value. Fraction form for 100%, decimal form, I would give you like 90% for that decimal. You're doing all the Okay. And then we still have to do part 2. It says find y when x equals 90. So use the equation that you just wrote, plug 90 in and find y. Show your work. Do you need me to zoom? Okay. You got your y? Anybody? This is still the 1/3. I got my equation. This is considered like part 2. Because the directions say write an equation given, and then it says then find y when x is 90. So my part 2 is to use this equation. So I'm going to take my equation, I'm going to plug 90 in to find y. All right, 1/3 times 90 would be 90 over 3. Y would be 30. Anybody think they can come up with a problem when the constant of variation would be a fraction? Think about it. Okay, open your workbooks up to page 41. We'll do 41 again. Let's go ahead. Let's just do 7 and 8 right now. Let's just do 7 and 8. So these directions are a little more simplified than the way I broke it down for you. This is page 41. Right now, you're going to do 7 and 8. We're going to go over it right now. This is not homework, it's classwork right now. It says, I didn't use the word suppose. It says, suppose y varies directly as x. Okay, I read the words, and my brain tells me, okay, write this down, right? I read the words, and my brain tells me the model that I'm using. Write the equation that relates x and y. So this is part 1. You plug in these two values. It says then solve. That's the part 2 we were doing. So then find x when y is 32. So go ahead, find k in number 7 using the first x and y. Show your work. So I plugged in. I put the y in for y. I put the x in for x. I'm going to draw a line, find k. Clearly not enough room in your workbook, right? Clearly. There's not enough room there. So I'll divide by -2. I get 4 equals k. And now I have part 1 done. Part 1, y equals 4x. Part 2, find x when y is 32. Tells you the y value, so you put in for y. Solve for x. 2-part questions. The directions. I wish it were a little more easy to follow. This is the way it's been for years. All right, head to number 8. I am not going to walk you through this one. Be quiet. You can discuss it. Compare answers. Oh, I forgot how to do this. What do I do? Are you familiar with rise over run? So we'll start at 0, 0. And this is like -2, and there's an invisible 1 under it. So I would go down 2 and then run 1. Down 2 and run 1. To rise over run. Yeah. Well, it's rise over run. Change in y over change in x. So the 2 in the rise over run is the slope. Let me show you here. You see this equation? 3/4. From here to here, they went up 1, 2, 3, and over 4. And you can see that here and here as well. Yeah, if it's not done in class, it's homework.